TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to this week's TellyCast. On this week's show, my guests are Mel Chapman, CEO of social first publisher and channel operator Jungle Creations, and Adam Jacobs, creative director of German international content distributor and channel owner Quintus Studios, as we hear more about their businesses and preview next week's TellyCast Digital Content Forum. Adam and Mel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was very energetic. I'm going to level up for the next 20 minutes. That's great.
That's the energy gone now,
You've
I
set
think.
the benchmark. No, I'm stepping up. I've put my back straight, ready to go.
It is 10 o'clock now, and I have had a coffee, so I should be ready.
That's right. Yeah. Come on, guys. Come on, step it up. Thank you for coming on the show. Really excited to be able to chat to you guys who are leading some really exciting businesses that are really, challenging the status quo in many ways within the content industry. We'll get to talk a little bit more about that in detail. But Mel, let's start with you. What I always like to do is go into people's backgrounds a little bit and get a bit of an idea of career journey, because it's not really the sort of thing that you often talk about in business. You get to do business together with somebody, but sometimes you don't know their background, how they've got to where they've got to, which often can be a really interesting story. Correct me if I'm wrong. You come from more of a traditional publishing industry background. Is that right?
Not really.
Ah, okay. I've got it wrong.
Depends on the way that I did do a journalism degree, so that might be where that's come from. But actually, I'm probably going to disappoint with it not being a tremendously interesting story. But so I was the first employee at Jungle Creations when we launched the business around 9 years ago. So I've actually spent a lot of time within Jungle launching the business, building the business, and kind of taking on various different roles in Jungle during that tenure to where I am today. I did take a short sabbatical at Lad Bible for a period of time early on in that journey, which is kind of I guess, a broadly similar design to the publishing side of the Jungle business. I worked in Asda before that for a bit, and a cocktail bar, which is more traditional. And I did a couple of bits of work experience at like magazine and food magazines. So there was that element there. But yeah, when I joined Jungle, I was still at university. So it was meant to be kind of a part-time work experience job. And then the founder, Jamie, asked me to join full-time. So I had to get my university's permission to finish my dissertation in a week and then leave at uni early to join Jungle, which I think looking back feels like it was a decision I can validate to do. During that time at Jungle, we grew from kind of the two or three of us in a room to the 140 people business we are now. And I held roles such as head of social, head of content, chief content and brand officer, co-CEO, and then more recently, CEO.
Your career is actually so far within Jungle has obviously spanned the length of the business, essentially. And you must have seen an awful lot of change within the digital first sector over those 9 years. That's a long time to be with one business within the digital first sector. And there's so many changes we've seen when it comes to, algorithms and new platforms and advertising coming into this sector. What's your experience of those 9 years? Now you look back across those 9 years, what do you think the biggest challenges have been for a digital first business? Obviously, you've seen massive growth and developed lots of channels, which we'll talk about in a second. But what have been the biggest challenges, do you think, over the last few years of you running the business?
How long have we got for this pod? I mean, it's been it's definitely been a period of lots of change. I think lots of working it out. Where we sit, Jungle as a business, it's quite what you would call like a new space, really, kind of social publishing, social first publishing, social monetization, and so on and so forth. Way back when we were just a single Facebook channel and a website, and we were sending people from our Facebook page to our website to monetize them via articles. I guess fast forward to now, we're 145 million followers now across all of the social platforms with multiple websites. Also, we dip into fast TV a little bit. We come into the real world. We've got, products from some of our media brands and so on. And of course, I think algorithms have been the biggest challenge for us as a business and navigating the constant change that happens there. But actually, I think it's what's enabled us to build a really exciting business, a really agile business, a business that wants to innovate a lot, a business that wants to disrupt and think of doing what's not been done before. We hold ourselves to a space for what's next. And that's what we really want to embody within the energy of our business. And I think if it was a smooth ride, frankly, we would never have been pushed to think like that and behave like that. And now I think it's unlocking that as our secret sauce on some of the interesting ventures we've built across Jungle over that time.
Yeah, well, we'll come and talk about those consumer brands and moving into the real world FMCG space and all of that, which is really fascinating. But just coming back to that I think, one of the things about social first businesses that completely amazes me on a daily basis is that once you find that, I don't know, Facebook or Insta or Google changes that algorithm, overnight you can see a really, really well-performing channel just lose all your traffic or a massive part of it. The ability to pivot and to work out what that new algorithm is and to build up your audience again, that's got to be a huge lesson for the rest of the sort of linear TV industry where things work on a much slower basis. How do you deal with that? Come in one morning and find that there's been a really significant change in Google's algorithm for YouTube content, for example. How do you go about sitting down and going, right, what's the new secret sauce?
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of horror stories out there in our space about businesses that have, come in and felt that roller coaster dipping to the bottom overnight. But honestly, I don't think that's really how it happens. I think the platforms do tend to put out a lot of signals and a lot of communication about their direction of travel, what they're prioritizing, what they're favoring, what they want to see, what they don't want to see. We've built a system called Jungle IQ where we're interpreting, a tremendous amount of data on a daily basis across all of the views that we're garnering. And you can see these trend lines and these patterns start to emerge. And I think it's about not just kind of sitting on that, making hay when the sun's shining on one way of working and being ignorant to that not lasting forever and trying new things all the time. We look at kind of best test rest strategies, what's working really now, what do we need to start testing new things on based on what we're seeing, what do we need to kind of stop doing. So I think kind of anticipating the change always, because it is the only constant, helps you prepare your business for that. And just, as I said before about making hay where the sun shines, don't expect it to last forever. Because it won't. If it does, great, but don't build your business around it lasting forever. Don't build a load of headcount around it lasting forever. And just anticipate it, basically.
And I suppose that's all about multi-channel strategy, making sure your brand and your content is where viewers and users want it across multiple channels, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Snap, or whether it's Facebook or YouTube. It's about playing across all of those platforms.
I think to some extent it's multi-channel strategy, but I actually don't think that's enough. I think across your whole business, it's what happens outside of these channels. So, we've got Jungle Media, which is that publishing media owner, brand owner part of the business, but we also have the Wild by Jungle, which is our social and influencer agency. And that leverages the core competencies of being a publisher, understanding communities online, understanding great content and how to capture eyeballs and engage people to drive to action, and actually launching a slightly separate but very, very kind of complementary part of our business that's talking to clients directly about how you help them with their journey on that. And most of the time for a lot of clients, it's not about they're trying to make money from these platforms. It's about building communities, building audiences and driving marketing messages, which means they're not at risk to the same kind of perils of platform changes when it's largely based about monetization that you are from a publisher. So multi-channel probably isn't enough. It's definitely you have to do it. But beyond that, what else can you do with your business competencies to actually broaden that diversification?
And it's also about understanding the data, isn't it? Everything that you've talked about when it comes to, listening to the platforms, what they're planning to do with the direction of travel, but also looking at the data that you've got in front of you is crucial, right? It's crucial for a business like yours. It's making smart decisions on the data that's available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of us blending that art and science, not foregoing creativity, which I think people are always going to understand people best. Numbers aren't. So people are going to know what people want to watch and so on, and absolutely honouring that as a business, but also complementing it with data, trend, pattern lines, because ultimately that's just going to give you an insight to what your audiences want to watch. And then what we're able to do beyond that is leverage that in that commercial side of our business to support brands in various categories that operate in the same ones that our media brands do, and able to share and unlock that data and those insights for them on their own journeys as well.
Mel, before we move on to Adam, I saw a piece that was really fascinating on Management Today recently, which was about you basically discussing your ADHD diagnosis and how that was feeding into you in your role as CEO and how you're learning to lead with it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was diagnosed around a year ago now, actually, and I didn't really have much understanding of what it was or what it meant before or how that was manifesting in me. And it's obviously something that I've had all of my life. And now that I understand it more, I can kind of understand what I felt were just ingrained personality traits. Often I felt were kind of my own weaknesses that actually was just a part of my brain working differently to other people's. I think the biggest thing was, having some sympathy for myself in the fact, like forgiving myself a little bit, and the power of that to kind of just unlock peace of mind, which gives you space to just focus your energy on other things, is paramount. But beyond that, how does that translate into the way that I run our business, the way that I run my teams, the culture within our business? And what do I need to, understand that actually this isn't best positioned for me to look at? There's someone around me in my team who can manage a kind of task like this better than me, and not beating myself up for it. And also realizing that a lot of the things that I think have got Jungle to where it is today, and that we've just spoken about agility, appetite for change, appetite to kind of come up with new ideas and move quickly, I think a lot of that has been driven by that way of thinking. And actually that's a strength, not a weakness. So it's about kind of positioning my energy in areas that I could have a positive impact, rather than trying to do everything and beating myself up about the things that just naturally I'm not as good at as someone else would be.
Right. So in a sense, it's actually helped you delegate and help you, address the situation and say, okay, this is what I'm really good at. I'm doubling down on this, but actually I might need somebody to step up in this particular area because they're good at it, and entrust them with more responsibility. Is that how it's played out over the last year or so?
Yeah, I definitely think that's one part of it. I think another part is, ADHD is one of many different kind of neurodivergencies that will be impacting people in the workplace. And actually, how can I ensure that Jungle as a business is putting the right support and frameworks and ways of working into our workflows? I don't think it's pragmatic for any business to think this is the way this business works, and everybody within this business is going to be able to apply themselves to those kind of rules of engagement. You have to have nuanced ways of working, and that's about training managers. So we've had a lot of training for all managers across Jungle about kind of different ways of working, different ways of supporting individuals across teams. Even things like when we do big kind of company meetings and we're inviting everybody to come along, sending an agenda beforehand for those that might find that anxiety inducing. I don't know what I'm turning up to. I need a bit of context. I need a bit of support around that. So my priority is absolutely, how can I ensure that Jungle is the best workplace it can be for anybody who might have anything that could be impacting, their ability or what they feel is their ability to bring their best self and their authentic self to work.
And how many people are at Jungle now, Mel?
Yeah, so full time, it's around 140 employees. We do work a little bit with kind of freelancers and some models like that, but that's our broad full-time headcount at the minute.
Do you think that post your diagnosis, you're now a better leader? You're better equipped? Once you received a diagnosis, you're better equipped to lead the business and take the business forward?
It's a really interesting question, because I do have a broad holistic view that I would never say anybody is the complete leader. I think you have to constantly learn. You have to constantly adapt to the changing environment, changing employee base, the changing psychology of different demographics, ages, etc. of workers. So I think it's always an ongoing thing that you focus on and put energy into. However, I think probably also because I'm taking medication that helps manage some of what I think were negative symptoms that I was dealing with before, that has enabled me to be a slightly better leader.
Okay, thanks for sharing that with us, Mel. Adam, coming to you. Welcome to the show. Great to have you on TellyCast. A lot of people in the UK TV industry specifically will know you from your time at Discovery, which you spent a long, long time there. But obviously you've done lots of different production work in the meantime since you left Discovery, and you've now been at Quintus Studios for a couple of years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just over, actually. Yeah, it's gone so quickly. But yeah, it's about 2.5 years now.
For those who aren't aware of Quintus, tell us about what Quintus is, a bit of background to the company, and what you're offering to the market that's different, because I think there are real differences in the way that you're approaching production in these changing times. Tell us about the business.
Quintus is an AVOD channel operator. So we run several documentary channels on YouTube. So our largest is called Free Documentary, which is pretty self-explanatory. You can go onto YouTube and you can watch documentaries for free. And that's got just over 4 million subscribers. And then we have several genre channels. I won't run through all of them, but for example, we have a history channel, so Free Documentary History, Free Documentary Nature, Free Doc Crime. We've just launched Free Doc Ancient History, so obviously a spin-off from our regular history channel. And that's the main part of the business, and the majority of that content that airs on all of those channels is made up of third-party acquisitions. So we have an acquisitions team that goes out and generally buys in bulk from TV distributors and then puts them on the channel, and we monetize it that way. But what's unique about Quintus is that we also have a TV distribution business. So we very much have one foot in the digital world, probably a slightly larger foot, and then and you could maybe call it a slightly more smaller foot in the TV world. And I think that's mainly just because of the climate and the environment that we're living in at the moment, where there's budget freezes and nobody seems to have any money. But we do have that part of the business, and it is successful. We're also a multi-platform business, so we're on Facebook, we're on Snap, we have a fast channel, and I was brought into Quintus, as you said, Justin, it's about 2.5 years ago now. I wasn't full time initially, but I have been for quite some time, and this was really to kind of generate and develop Quintus originals, and this is something else that we kind of pride ourselves upon of being slightly different. So we have the channels, we have the distribution side, TV distribution side, but then we also have our original side as well. And this is working with producers to generate content that we can put on our channel. We generally own the IP, but we can put it on all of our platforms. But the great thing is we can also monetize it through TV sales, because we then pitch those shows to TV broadcasters, and we go to all the markets and put our Quintus originals in our catalogue. Yeah, it's a multi revenue stream initiative.
So for any TV producers, and I know you're talking to lots in the UK and internationally as well, we see various different announcements that you're making within the international market. Because the main part of your channel business is obviously fast channel, but also AVOD when it comes to YouTube, and you mentioned the other platforms as well. Does that take a different financial approach on the part of the producer? Because the producers that we know in the UK have been, over the last sort of 40 years, I suppose, the model hasn't really changed that much, has it? I mean, since obviously international distribution for the past 20 years has proved a really vital income stream for producers, but still the whole commissioning model and the way that the mechanics of the business works hasn't really changed that much. But forgive me if I'm wrong, but the way that you're asking producers to approach this is in a slightly different way. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it is, and you're absolutely right, Justin. It hasn't changed, and I think that's a real problem, if I'm honest. And I think the whole process of commissioning is in TV certainly is completely flawed. And I say that because it takes a ridiculous amount of time to develop a project, to then pitch it into a broadcaster, to wait for decision makers to make their mind up. And I think sometimes you're not always dealing with the decision maker. It goes into, you'll pitch it to a person, a commissioner maybe, or a buyer, and they have to take it internally to like a round table, and then they have these commissioning rounds which are every month, and then your show misses that month, and it just takes a ridiculous amount of time. And then, as most people know, what happens is the percentage of shows that actually get commissioned is tiny. So all of that development work, which is usually done for nothing, I mean, the amount of shows that have just gone to the graveyard, the amount of ideas, it just seems like a complete waste of resource. And also what you find, and we've had this at Quintus, where we've had really great ideas from producers that we think, yeah, we can put that on our channel, we can put in an investment. We're not a huge company, but we can make an investment. And so we have to go out and find pre-sale money, and even pre-sale money is low. Definitely from when I was in the UK as well. Like when I was at Discovery, it's a hell of a lot less than now than what it was then. And what you find is that even on modest budgets, and when I say like a modest budget, I'd say like 50, 60,000 pounds, let's say. Even then, we've struggled to raise finance, even with like a decent pre-sale offer on the table, that might cover half the budget. We're still struggling. By the time you get to a point where you think you've raised the finance for the show, your first partner's pulled out because it's taken 12 months and they spend it on something else. So reason I'm telling you all this, and it's obvious for most people anyway that work in the industry, is that when I came into Quintus, using my network and going to indies that I know and that I like and I know can make really good shows, and saying, look, we want to commission, we were having the problem of kind of raising the finances that we can put in an investment, but it's probably not on the same scale as some of the bigger terrestrial players out there, or digital players out there. And what we found is we did commission some really great shows, but the whole purpose of the commissions was that we wanted to move away from this very long-winded process of trying to find pre-sales and it going on for weeks and months and waiting for decision makers. But also, we operate on a rev share business for any producers we work with. And what we wanted to do is not only for us to get into the black as quickly as possible, but also for our production partners. We didn't want to wait kind of 4 or 5 years before we're actually seeing a profit on the show. And so what I've had to do in the last kind of 12 months or so is pivot. And so whilst we always will work with, kind of traditional TV indies if you would like, I've also started working with freelancers, and this is freelancers directly. And I kind of, I put call outs on LinkedIn, found some really, really good people, like not just in the UK, in the US, internationally. And it's just a different tack. So, we have commissioned shows that are, as you said, Justin, with, internationally. So we commissioned a show from an African indie that's based in Kenya. We did a mystery show, which was with a Czech Republic indie. But the last 2 or 3 shows that I've commissioned, and actually I greenlit something last week as well, this has been directly with freelancers. So someone that's pitched an idea into me, and usually it's someone who's a producer director, or it might be even someone who's a video journalist who's got this really great access, this really great story. And that's kind of how we're working now, to try and get shows off the ground. And it has worked, and it has been successful. And we put this content on the channels, and it's done really, really well. And then we've taken those shows to market. We had the team at MIPCOM selling those shows in, and we're just waiting for the feedback now. So hopefully it's positive.
Wow, so that's really interesting. And we all know that freelancers right across the TV industry have had a horrendous year. There's an enormous amount of talent out there that's not working or barely working. But your model seems to completely play into all of that amazing talent that's out there, who've got great ideas, producers, directors, for example, who can approach this without the overheads of a normal production business and talk to you directly. As an ex-Discovery Commissioner, the quality of content that needs to be produced to be able to sell it on, as you said, take it to market, as well as it working really well for your AVOD channels. That's fascinating. And so give us one example, for example. You mentioned one in Kenya. Can you give us another example of a show that you've commissioned from a from a freelancer? And, you know, what's the format of the show? How many hours?
I work with a freelancer called Josh, who approached me with an idea. And when I basically did a call out to say which genres were working really well for us. And we sit on our channel Endeavour, poverty and homelessness has kind of struck a chord with our viewers, and people kind of being in a tight situation but managing to overcome adversity. So Josh pitched me an idea which was about homelessness. It was about very wealthy kind of tourist-led places and where lots of money is spent. And it was the flip side of that. So, for example, Las Vegas, where, you know, people go for a good time and see the amount of money is spent, but actually half a mile down the road, there's a real serious homelessness and poverty problem. And he pitched this to me as a single doc. And so we then further developed it as something that could be turned into a series, which we call Poverty in Paradise. So the pilot episode being shot in Las Vegas. And Josh paired up with another freelancer called James, and they went to Vegas for 10 days. They had this really, really good access to a local Las Vegas police force. They got a lot of the homeless people to chat to them. You know, some are in kind of recovering addicts. There's a guy and his son who had lost his job. He hadn't been able to get a job for a number of years. He lost his house. They were being helped by a charity, and you kind of follow the story of the father and son right the way through. And actually, I don't want to give any spoilers, but it kind of works out quite well for them. And also a real estate agent. So you had this story about homelessness and poverty in Las Vegas from lots of different angles through the access that these guys were able to get. And we put it onto our channel Endeavour something like 6 weeks ago, and it's just generated 1 million views. And obviously, whilst that doesn't equate to 1 million euros, it's still a healthy amount. And because we operate on a rev share model, you know, once we recouped our investment, then Josh and James will start making some money for it. And whilst it is on the channel, now we put it onto Facebook, where it's been pretty successful. And then we took it to MIPCOM. And we're trying to sell that as a series. So we've got one pilot episode, which is Las Vegas, and then the plan hopefully is to do another couple of episodes. I know one of those is I think will be in Mauritius, but that's been a real success story for us.
Yeah, I mean that to me sounds like a really interesting model for the future. When as I mentioned before, you've got an enormous bank of talent, you've got a new way of distributing content, and you can get straight to the story and get shows made quicker. Everybody must agree that the normal TV commissioning model is broken and has been for a long time. I mean, I was listening to what you were saying earlier on about, you know, that pain of getting partners together, and by the time you get the last one in, the first piece of the jigsaw falls out, or a key executive leaves. And then it all falls down, and you've had 18 months, 2 years of working on this project, and it doesn't happen, and it's all for nothing, and that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the other great thing is that we can greenlight really quickly, and I say really quickly. I don't mean like in a matter of days, but it might be like a couple of weeks. I don't want to ask freelancers too much, so generally it would be like a 2-page pitch, one with a general overview and one kind of outlining the episode. And, you know, we kind of run the numbers. Obviously, we have the data from YouTube. We've got a social media team, and they can look at what the performance, you know, they benchmark it against other similar shows. So the other thing I should say is also that we commission into spikes on the channels and also performance on social media. And, you know, still a bit of it is gut instinct. You know, I don't want it to be that it's, you know, the robots are taken over just yet. So it is obviously a bit of human intuition as well. But it is useful having this data, and hence we're able to. I mean, what we can also do when we're working for producers is that if what they pitch isn't quite right, we do a lot of analytics now where we can go back to them and say, you know, it might be locations, or it might be the characters, or it might be the content, but we can say, look, if you tweak it to this, which we believe based on our data will make this show perform really well. You know, if you're able to make those changes, then we'll greenlight it. And I would say, you know, usually we can greenlight something in about a month or two. So it's still not super quick, but I think it is pretty quick compared to your usual TV commissioning wait times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, exciting opportunities in the future. Look forward to seeing how, you know, the model develops. Mel, coming back to you, tell us about what you've got going on at the moment. Obviously, lots of things. You talked about 8 channels, consumer brands that you're working on with, I think it's Iceland, isn't it? You've got some consumer brands that you've spun off on the back of the success of one or two of your food channels.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Twisted is our food and drink lifestyle brand. We launched that in 2016. And it was a real kind of success story for us. It grew to 1 million followers in 6 weeks from purely kind of in studio, our own made original content for social. And it's kind of just been the gift that keeps giving for us really since then. And we've built over, I think it's nearly 30 million followers cross-platform for that brand now. We've done lots of interesting things with it across the years. We've got delivery-only restaurants called Twisted London that operate out of Uber Eats, and that's been going for 3 or 4 years for us now. We have a food market stall in Mercato Metropolitano in Elephant and Castle, which is a Twisted one. We also appear in many Asdas through a scheme called Food Labs, where they bring lots of different interesting brands, which means we've got kind of food to go and off the counter Twisted offerings for our audiences as well. We did a beer last year with Brewgooder, an amazing brewery based in Scotland, where you give back for every purchase that's sold. And we were donating a pound from every box to food banks to support cost of living that was going on last year, and that link into Twisted. And this year we partnered with Iceland, as you referenced, and we've got a SKU of 5 or 6 products that are in all Iceland stores across the UK, co-developed between Iceland's team and the Twisted team, which has been going great guns. And when we first launched it, it was featured across This Morning, and they were doing a taste testing of the products and so on, all kind of earned media. And this model of using our brand online as a marketing channel ultimately to drive sales to our products offline has proved really, really effective and exciting. So that's something we've got going on. We also just launched our first podcast with Twisted called What a Combo, which we've done in collaboration with Sony. So we've got Fern Brady, an amazing comedian, hosting that. And we have a different celebrity guest on each week, talking about kind of different flavor combinations, and also obviously food is the central part of that conversation, but expanding into kind of broader combos in life, what works together, what doesn't. And that made it into Apple's top 10 new podcasts when we launched it a month or so ago. So that's been super, super exciting. We also just did what I think is kind of one of our most interesting bits of commercial work with Cadbury's and Caramilk. We the campaign was, a lot of it was online and across our channels, but we extended it into the real world as well. And we actually launched a pop-up in London for the day, where an actual chocolate bar. So the bar, everything in it was themed and made out of chocolate. It was all about kind of heroing Caramilk and their, Aussie's favorite chocolate campaign. So to go and kind of touch and feel in the real world, which has always been the mantra of Jungle and that diversification. How do you have brands that maybe are born online and build community online, but are tangible in real life? And always really, really excites me to see that stuff come to fruition.
I think it's brilliant. That's fascinating and real sort of, again, a pointer to the future in terms of content creators and publishing businesses, building brands. And then, a brand is only a brand when it comes something other than you originally said. A book is a book, but actually if you take that out to be an event, or you take it to be a movie, it becomes a brand when it becomes a physical representation or across different media. What's interesting to me is that obviously you've got a brilliant team there of content creators and publishers and data scientists and extremely smart people. But, setting up consumer brands, how do you do that? How, because that's a different skill set to what you originally had within Jungle. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. And we had to learn this lesson slightly the hard way, if I'm honest with you, Justin. So when we first launched Twisted's restaurant side of the business, we did it ourselves. And it turns out we are not restaurateurs. You should have seen the menu. It was ridiculous. It was buying high, selling low. And we just weren't the experts in that. So the way that we tend to operate on these things now is via joint ventures. You pair what we're really, really good at with experts where they're really good at something that we perhaps don't have in-house, and it enables what we're trying to create to be the best version of itself. So we relaunched Twisted London with a very experienced restaurateur business. And with the podcast, we're doing that in collaboration with Sony and all of their kind of something else music, audio-based experience. If these things kind of go brilliantly, what we can do over time is bring more of that in-house and build a team of experts around it and start kind of keeping more of the lion's share of those ventures. But absolutely, kind of to mitigate risk, we always consider joint ventures in the first instance of anything that's not kind of within our wheelhouse.
Yeah. Test and learn. And then, learning is the key, isn't it, really, in adapting?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best of luck with all of those projects. And I'm sure we're going to see more and more from the channels that you run over at Jungle.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
And now it's time for Story of the Week, where my guests get to highlight the TV or content industry news story that's caught their eye in the past 7 days. Adam, what's your story of the week?
Yeah, my story of the week, Justin, was something that I saw in Deadline, and this was about the BBC being urged to take action over Little Britain because of a racist sketch being on iPlayer, and it's not the first time this has come up, but it has raised its head again. And what I find really interesting about this is it really is just a difference of opinion, and some are very much for removing it because it's like, why should there be racist programming on iPlayer? And others are saying, look, get over yourselves. It's comedy. It's very of the time. It came out in 2004. What are you getting in your knickers in a twist for? But I can see both sides of the story. And I think in terms of creative freedom, it's a bit like when the Roald Dahl books being edited. And it's interesting because I didn't necessarily agree on those books being edited. I just think that they've been around for so long. Why do it now? Although I did appreciate that it may not be suitable in this day and age. But I think the Little Britain one, I think, takes it a step further because, it's obvious racial stereotypes. And what's surprising is that this was even allowed to air in 2004. I mean, although I guess it wasn't really 20 years ago. But yeah, it was my story just because I'm still not decided. I don't know. Like, I read it and I thought, I don't know what I think of this. And it changes almost on a daily basis. Like, one day I think, no, why don't they just pull that particular segment and just run the rest of it? And the other part of me is like, no, look, it's of its time. There's probably are people that still think it's funny, whether that's right or wrong. So I don't know, but it just kind of caught my eye when I saw it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny, isn't it, when you look at comedy and some things people have different sense of humor, right? Some people find some things funny, some things not. But obviously, you add the extra layer of context. And 20 years ago and 30 years ago and 40 years ago, it's not a simple answer to it, is there really? And you've got, as I say, you've got context laid over that, but also you have got the ability to flag things up, haven't you? You'll be able to the flag before the show or before the scene to say, this was created at this point in time, but moving into sort of censorship and it becomes a very sort of sticky area. Well, no, interesting.
I'm just going to add, to be fair to the BBC, I think they did put a warning in front of it, and then it becomes a matter of choice. If they're flagging that this content contains something racially explicit, if you then choose to watch it and you're offended, well, then you've chosen to watch it. So I think, as far as I'm aware, they did put a warning up.
Okay, Mel, how about you? What's your story of the week?
It's quite different from that one. And I won't weigh in on that argument, otherwise we will literally be here all day. But I do think there's a difference between something being offensive and something just being racist. And I don't think being of its time is an excuse to keep publishing, monetizing, whatever, that content. So that's my side of it. And actually, I've been off for the last week or so I haven't been reading as much because I try to switch off. But I read a brilliant piece in The Drum by Kevin Lynch, who was recently made redundant from Oatly, and the title gripped me straight away. I was axed by Oatly's creative director. Here are 5 arguably useful lessons. And I was kind of expecting it to be a scathing, I've just been cut from this business. But it was really, really insightful, humorous, brilliant piece about kind of all of his learnings from the work at Oatly. I think to some extent an advert for what he's doing next. But the bit that really stuck with me is, Oatly transformed their business, existed for a long time, but we probably all would look at that and think it's kind of a broadly new brand because they completely rethought the way that they approach marketing. And one of their key lessons out of the 5 is people don't give a shit. Sorry if I'm not allowed to swear on this, but people don't care about your brand. Once you accept that, it will absolutely unlock freedom for you to talk and, think about marketing in a completely different way. And I just, any marketeers out there, I would suggest they read it, because I think there's so many valuable nuggets in it, laced with humor, and quite inspirational. So big shout out to Kevin Lynch, and wish him luck for everything that he does next. I just thought it was a brilliant piece.
We'll put the links to both of those stories in the episode description, so you can go and check those out. And now it's time for Hero of the Week and Get in the Bin. Mel, who's your Hero of the Week?
Again, I'm going to extend this out to a couple of weeks because I have been off, so do forgive me for that, Justin. But my Hero of the Week is Norwich City Football Club. And I'm not a Norwich fan, I'm a Spurs fan. But I don't know if everybody saw, I think most of you did, the advert that they did for Mental Health Awareness Day with the two football fans. So incredibly powerful, targeting an audience that probably is still, needs hyper targeting on kind of talking about mental well-being and mental health. Brilliantly executed. Didn't expect it from Norwich. But yeah, I just thought it was an incredible piece of work and probably impactful for quite a lot of people.
I thought it was fantastic as well. We'll put a link to that as well. It's a great little, amazing little clip. But before we move on that, Mel, I'm a Leeds fan. So, I've just got to say, I won't say anything. Adam, who or what is your Hero of the Week?
So my Hero of the Week, it's a good story, this, bizarrely, is a German neurosurgeon called, I'm going to get this name wrong now, Peter Vakoczi. And Peter Vakoczi, so he's my hero because last Friday there's a Peruvian electronic artist called Sofia Cortesis released her album. And on her debut album, there is a track called Vakoczi. So it's dedicated to this neurosurgeon. And the reason it was dedicated to this neurosurgeon is because Sofia's mum was in Perugia and dying of cancer. Because the surgery was so dangerous, nobody wanted to operate on her because it was too risky. So Sophia posted a clip of a song on Instagram saying that and asking about if Peter Vakoczi would do this, and dedicated this track to him if he would operate on her mum. And through various means, social media means, Peter then saw this. He then did the surgery on Sophia's mum, and she survived. And what I think is what was really, really good about this story is Sophia, as a thank you, then took Peter to Berghain in Berlin, which is one of the world's most notorious clubs. So this is like Peter, the 55-year-old neurosurgeon, probably having a very good time at Berghain. So I thought that was a really good end to that story.
That's a brilliant story. Fantastic. Well, again, we'll put a link to that story as well, Adam. Very inspirational. Might be material for a nice doc there. You never know. And what about in the bin? Who or what are you throwing in the bin, Adam?
It might be slightly controversial, okay, but this is only just for this one instance. I'm going to put Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr in the bin because there's this announcement of the Beatles' kind of new single and using AI to kind of bring John Lennon back to life, and using this recording that they've kind of, managed to, through the use of technology. I kind of feel John recorded this before he died, and I kind of always think he didn't release it for a reason, and I just think these things should just be left to lie, to bring back another bit. It's like, a new Beatles track in 2023. Can't we just enjoy them for kind of who they were and what they were? And the other thing that really, really annoyed me about this is that the 12-inch single that it's coming out on, so it's one new track, and then on the B-side it was the Beatles' first single, which I should know this, but maybe it's Love Me Do or something like that. And that's $19.99 for 2 tracks. Ridiculous. So as much as I love the Beatles, and I met Paul McCartney earlier this year, and he's a very nice guy. But just for this particular reason, I'm putting McCartney and Ringo in the bin. Sorry.
Wow. The surviving Beatles are going in the bin. That is controversial. Well, I'm gonna reserve judgment, Adam, until this track comes out, which I think is going to be the day that TellyCast comes out, on Thursday, the 2nd of November. So we'll see, and maybe we'll discuss this at the TellyCast Digital Content Forum, Adam, which I know you're presenting at. So, Mel, how about you? Who or what are you chucking in the bin?
I loved that, by the way. It's very rogue, this, and it's not related to the industry at all. I want to put in the bin the people that attend Big Brother live evictions and shout, "Get someone out." Like, who are these people? Are they real or are they paid actors? Are we still doing that in 2023? We talk a lot about well-being and duty of care on television programs and, the psychological impact. I think it's bonkers that people are still going to do that in this day and age. So I'd like them to absolutely get in the bin and stay there.
In the bin. Yes, absolutely.
I think that's a really, really good point, actually, Mel. I'd never thought of that before, but it is crazy, right? Because it's somebody that they don't know them, just to shout,
and they sit there and they listen to it. The psychological impact that must have of thinking a country hates you is terrifying. So please stop doing that.
All right. Mel, Adam, it's been a great episode, this one. I really enjoyed speaking to you both. You're both going to be at the TellyCast Digital Content Forum, which is happening on the 9th of November, IFI South Bank. Mel, I'm going to be really enjoying your session, which is called On the Money, What's Next in Social Video Monetization, which is sponsored by 4 Studio. And Adam, you're going to be presenting on The Drop, which is the evening studio showcase session of new projects, along the lines, perhaps, of what you've mentioned earlier on when it comes to freelancer projects and some clues about new projects you're looking for partners with.
Exactly that, yeah. And we're all presenting a new format that Quintus is representing as well. So very exciting.
Fantastic. Well, looking forward to seeing you both there, and everybody else that's listening to the show. Please come down. Tickets are still available via tellycast.com/events. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Adam. Great to speak to you, and have a good week, and I'll see you next week.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, Justin. Thanks, Mel.
Well, that's about it for another week's show. As ever, I hope you enjoyed it. This week's telecast was edited by Ian Chambers, as always, and recorded in London. Next week, we'll have 2 more speakers who'll be appearing at the TellyCast Digital Content Forum, which is sponsored by BBC Studios. And they'll be pointing to the future of the next generation content industry. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next week. Stay safe.